Hi everybody, it's me, Heather again. Welcome to Rycrafty, my channel. I can also be found on Instagram as Rycrafty. And we're trying a different view today because I want to show you some things on the sewing desk. First, yes, I am sitting in an office chair. Yes, this guy is always on my lap, no matter what temperature is outside. I still have my little 20-pound furry hot water bottle. So this week I want to talk about a couple of things, and they're both pretty obvious. I mean, look at that. It's so weird because I'm not actually pointing at it, but it looks like I am on the video. We're going to talk about that quilt square on the wall behind me in a little bit. But I also want to talk about these. My talons. I've never had nails this long before. So before we talk quilt squares, first we have to talk pride. This morning that I'm filming this, not when I am posting it, but today is the day of the Pride Parade in Toronto. And I've watched it before, but I've never participated. I was never certain if I should take up that space as I'm a straight woman. And I didn't know like how I would participate, but I have watched before and had fun downtown. It's such great crowds. And this year, one of my friends works for ACT Toronto, a company that has a group in the parade, and they were asked to ask friends and family if they wanted to join, and so I was like, yes, I would love to have fun and celebrate all my LGBTQ friends. And then, of course, I thought, what will I wear? But in particular, first I thought I would do my own nails because I have a bunch of colors. I could do rainbow. But then I thought, no, I want something really fun, like really crazy. And so I went on Etsy and I bought a set of press-ons, like pride press-ons, but they've also got sort of little stars and moons, so they're a little witchy as well, which I think is fun. As I said, I've never, ever had nails this long, especially the thumbs. Never done this before. So I only just put these on. I started early this morning because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take, but it's been pretty good. And then, of course, because I had this amazing, crazy manicure, I was like, I have to show something I've done, so I have an excuse to show these off. Because I stuck these on with stickers. I think they're not going to last very long. And I can't wear these to work tomorrow because I've been trying to type. I've been typing some replies to some YouTube comments. Thank you for commenting. And it's hard. It's definitely slower than normal. I could type. I got out sensible messages without typos, but yeah, I can't do a work day like this. Too much typing. Someone would probably ask me to move a heavy box full of papers if I wear fancy nails to work. So these are just for today. And as I said, I started so early this morning that I have time to talk about my quilt. But also, before the quilt, I know I'm making you wait for the quilt. I don't know if everyone else did this when they were younger, sort of teenagery, early 20s-ish, but remember buying a big t-shirt and then like cutting it up and changing the neckline and the arms and all that. I had a whole book on like different ways to cut up and modify your t-shirts. I honestly didn't do it to very many because I was always kind of too scared to cut into things. But for the Pride Parade, the group has shirts. And I got my shirt the other day. It was very big. Not so much big around, but very long. So I did some t-shirt cutting and I took a little video of that. So I will stick that in here. Okay, so the shirt is fine, but it's almost as long as my shorts. So we're gonna do something about that. Okay, so I measured. I want it to be 7 inches shorter than this was a good length for me. That wouldn't be cropped, that is still above the top of my shorts. But then I also wanted to put the ties in the front. I drew a basic triangle. I don't want an actual triangle shape. I think I want like this sort of curvy shape. So I'm going to cut this one out of only the front, then use it as a pattern piece to make this side match pretty close. And then the back side, just cutting off 7 straight inches. And then we'll see where we are. Okay, so t-shirt is shorter. I've got this little shape. I don't think this is enough. Yeah, not enough. So I think I just need to split this farther up the middle, and don't try this at home. I thought it would be funny to do this on camera, but it is not a funny gag if you accidentally snip yourself in the stomach. Okay, I'm back. It was not a good idea. So I took it off and put it on the bed. Okay, so I cut maybe a couple inches more. Let's see, now do I like it? That's better. That's much better. Where it starts gathering, I guess it sort of obscures the words, but there's going to be a bunch of us in these shirts, so I think I'm okay. I like it. Haven't cut up a t-shirt in what feels like a million years. See you tomorrow.
Was I transcending or just oxygen deprived? Is laughter the best medicine if I do it to keep from crying? Was I hovering or did I just get up too fast?
Okay, I have made you wait long enough. Time to talk Birdling Quilt. Please enjoy my nails as I show you things. Conan likes these because he gets extra scritchy scratches. In the last video, I spoke about all the fabric I bought and for the Birdling Quilt. Oh, that is good scratchy. That's nice. So I bought this whole quilt's worth of fabric. The same day I saw the pattern and bought the pattern. And then the last video, all the fabric had arrived and I showed you, and I went through my plan. And very soon after filming that video, I started cutting into everything. It's just fun sometimes. Like, I was just cutting out a bunch of rectangles, making sure I cut out the same number of rectangles and squares out of all the fabrics. But it was kind of meditative, or you could put some TV on in the background or podcast and just do some straight line cutting with the rotary cutter. So that was great. It was even better after I changed my rotary cutter blade. So don't forget to do that, because after I changed the blade, I finished that night. Like the same night I switched out the blade for a new one. So fast. And then of course, once I had the pieces cut out, I wanted to start sewing them. The Birdling Quilt is made up of a lot of flying geese, and she's got this technique to show you how to sew 4 flying geese at a time by layering squares on squares and sewing on the diagonal and cutting out and all that. So I wasn't even done cutting out the fabric, but as soon as I had just enough fabric cut out to try it, I wanted to try. The fabric is all cut into pieces now. And so these are some of the little squares, or they're not squares, but the flying geese. So far I have only done this dark honey yellow background. I haven't done one of the pale ones yet. I decided to start with the darkest. So there you can see that's got the honeycomb, that's got the little 70s flower. We've got the dot and the little 70s flower again, or the yellow dot. This one, what do we got? Yeah, so this is something I was interested to find out as I sewed. This one is sort of the abstract scribbly one. Depending where you cut it, some bits are almost entirely white. Like this has a couple little bits of yellow and some scribbles on it, but they're pretty pale. This one, but these flowers go in stripes across the fabric, so depending where you cut it, I guess the stripes are close enough together that there will always be flowers on there. But yeah, it's interesting seeing some of the more spaced out fabrics, how they work. And then this one is honeycomb again, and the little speckledy dot. So yeah, one evening I made a bunch of the 4 at a time flying geese just to try it out, and because it was kind of addictive, because I just wanted to see what the next combination would look like, and figure out sort of how the fabric placement works on those 4 at a time blocks that you were doing. Maybe I'll try and go into that and try and sew one together with you right now. Uncertain how this will affect the sewing. It has affected the typing. I don't want to sew through these nails before going to the parade in a couple hours. So as you can obviously see, I did a whole quilt block. Because once I had enough of the triangles, like I made just enough that there were a few extras so it would be a little random in the square, or in the finished square. But once I had enough, I thought I have to make a whole block because I just want to see how it sews up. I was also really interested in sewing the center, just this little checkerboard with these tiny little squares, and I wanted to see what it was like sewing those up. So let me pull this off the wall. This is a half wall into my kitchen. I just stuck it up there with some masking tape as like inspiration. And I love looking at it. My TV is here. When I sit on the couch, I'm watching the TV, but I can also see the block, and it makes me happy. So, pick up dog without stabbing him with nails. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry for disturbing you, sir. There. I hope sir is okay. Here's my block. And I do realize when I trimmed it down, because I think it's 16 inches, when I trimmed it down, I did end up trimming a bit too close to some of these corners. There should be a 1/4 inch allowance before these points hit the edge. It's fine, it's the first block. It is the right size, so it'll just be, the sashing won't quite meet the point. It'll be a little cut off here, but it's the right size, so it'll still fit into the quilt. Which is actually good, because I don't think I have enough solid fabric. I have a bunch of solid fabric left, but I don't think I have anything large enough to cut out these squares again, because you cut out these pieces as squares and then cut them into triangles. I don't think I have any pieces large enough to redo that. I could probably redo all the smaller bits. But anyway, let's look at this checkerboard. I just think it's so cute. One of the things I also wanted to see about it, this particular piece, and what I think I'm going to work on today, is what I was saying about the patterns on the fabric being really spaced out. Because one of these, let's grab a sample. And so this is the most spaced out pattern. So depending how you cut it, there can be lots of flowers or few flowers. And then for the little squares that go in the checkerboard, I think they're 1.5 or 1 1/4 something. But anyway, so you cut a bunch of these teeny tiny squares, and out of this fabric in particular, I'm pretty sure some of these squares are basically just blank. Yeah, like look at this one. There's nothing under my finger. There's one tiny flower here, but when you consider that every side of this will be 1/4 inch smaller, that one's basically just a cream colored square. So that's why that's the fabric I used for this first little checkerboard square that I made, because I really wanted to see how it would work out. And I did go through my little pile of little tiny squares, because I do think I cut out more of those than I needed, because I knew there might be this issue. And so I tried to pull ones that had at least some flower on there. But as you can see, I only got 2, where you can see a full flower, and then these ones got sort of eaten up by the seam allowance. So, yeah. Still cute. Still love it. Love it so much. As I said, it lives up there now for inspiration. And apart from that issue of the pattern disappearing and it looking like solid fabric in that little checkerboard, the other thing is that I think this is the area where contrast is going to be the most important, or lack of contrast is going to be the most noticeable, because this is done out of the patterned fabrics. And so I think what I want to do today is sort out my piles of tiny little squares into sort of the darker ones and the lighter ones, so I can have 2 groups that I know will contrast with each other, and then when I make the checkerboards, I just have to choose one from this group and one from that group, so the checker part will be visible, because some of them, like, I'll do this with the big squares because it's easier to see. If I checkerboarded these 2 together, it would mostly be white, but I don't think you'd be able to tell it's a checkerboard because they're so similar. They're the exact same background color. The pattern is so spaced out. This one, I'm sure you'd end up with a fully white square. This one you probably will have some little flowers on it, no matter how you cut it, but still, like, it's something I want to... The quilt is meant to be random. It's going to be mostly random, but I think I need to plan out these checkerboards. And so the quilt pattern is laid out, so you sew all of these first, all these triangles, sew a bunch of those, and then I think you do the checkerboards, and then you put the frame around the checkerboards, and then you start sewing the blocks together. And I think to be most efficient, obviously, I think you want to do all these at once, so you can do all the trimming and cutting at once, and then you go sort of step by step through. So I really jumped a whole bunch of steps by doing a whole block, but I just had to see it. I couldn't wait, because do you know how many of these like single triangle units I have to make? It's like 196, 192 or something. It's a lot. It's almost 200, and I've made 16 so far. There are 12 here, 4 sitting here. But I want to do the checkerboards next, get them done. Also because those little squares are prone to fly around because they're so small, and you may be able to see my air conditioner. It is air conditioning time of year. And this is my fabric table, or my cutting and sewing table. The air conditioner blows directly onto this, so I don't want any of my little squares blowing away. So if I sew them up into these pieces, they'll be a bit heavier, they won't fly away. And then I will get back to the triangles. And because I haven't done all the honey-colored ones that I need, the dark yellow, but I think the next ones I do are going to be the lightest yellow, because I want to see how that looks with all the fabrics together. Because that one is also, there will be some fabrics that aren't very contrasty. Again, I knew that going into it. I knew that as I was buying the fabric. It'll be a different look than this really dark yellow. So I'm going to change the camera around so you can look over my shoulder, and we can sort tiny little 1.5 inch squares together, which is probably boring to some people, but sounds like a great weekend activity to me. Okay, here we are. You can still see a little bit of the block over there. These are all the bits I've cut out. These are the patterned pieces, which are just in a couple sizes of square. That's obviously the triangles I've sewed up. These are all the solid pieces. And some more of the solid pieces. That little pile is all my leftovers. So if I need anything, I've got it cut out there. I also... The selvage were so cute on the solids and on the fat quarters, but obviously there's less selvage, that I saved it and cut it off. The selvage, honestly, was also really deep. So I cut it off with a little bit, just a 1/4 inch left on it, in case I wanted to sew it into something. Like I might make a little panel to go in the backing of the quilt with the selvages. I probably honestly could have gotten one more of the large squares out of each solid color had I not cut off so much selvage, but oh well. So that lives over there. Now, sorting squares. So these guys I know I'm considering in the darker pile. So that little yellow dot, the beehives, which you can barely tell are beehives now that they're all cut up so small. Some are more flowery, like that one's perfectly centered flower. That one's fun. So that can join there, in the dark category. I think, even though this is pretty light, because it is a solid yellow background with those flowers, I think that can join the dark side. Again, it feels so weird calling any of these colors darker. This is actually the only fabric on a pure white background. I would say everything else is pretty much some variation of cream. And again, this is the one I was saying was also quite spaced out. Like, look at that piece. There's barely anything on there. So I think as I'm organizing this, I might try and As I do the first few, I guess I will pull out some of the plainest ones and hope maybe I don't have to use them, but I may end up needing them. I can't remember exactly how many extras I calculated. So that's the light side. Okay, dog just walked into the tripod. This, we've already talked about, definitely on the light side. I'm getting used to the nails. It's only been like half an hour or so that I've had them on. So that's our light sides. This little flower stripe, also light, also very sparsely patterned. The gingham, I think the gingham belongs with the darker side, with the darker ones. Even though it's got the light squares, it's got enough other yellow that I think that can go there. And then we've got little dotty dot. I think this is so cute, and it's great because the pattern, I mean, compared to a lot of them, the pattern is quite dense. Like, there's no way you could cut out of this and not get a whole bunch of dots on it because they're so close together. So that's great, but it's still quite light. This guy, I think, is also pretty light. It's slightly more densely patterned than the other flower, than the more scattered one. Like, this is the one that makes me think of bed sheets. And so I think this is still a light version. And then the beehive, obviously light. I think the cutting went well on this though. I think even with another 1/4 inch missing on all sides, you can still tell that that's at least part of a honeycomb. So yeah, I think that's going to be my plan going forward, is I'm going to finish those little checkerboards. I need to do 15. There's 16 in the quilt because it's 4 blocks by 4 blocks. Obviously I've already got one done. So I'm going to do 15 more of those just to get those little pieces taken care of and figure out if I need to cut any more little squares just to make the numbers match, to make it random enough, random looking enough, I guess. And then I will get back to the 180 something flying geese that I have left to make. But in case you were wondering, the fabric that is on this table that is not yellow is a blue skirt I had cut out and a black pair of shorty overalls that I had cut out that were going to be my next projects before I dove into summer yellow quilt territory. I'm still hoping that I work on those this summer. I mean, maybe after sewing up 15 little checkerboards, maybe I'll want to sew something that isn't yellow, something that has bigger pieces. So again, I'm still hoping to wear those 2 things this summer. I guess it's the end of June already, wow. But yeah, hopefully those will also be part of maybe a next video or 2. Let's see if we can sew together one of these 4 at a time flying geese blocks with the nails, with the lighter yellow. So not this honey yellow, but the banana cream yellow. So first, I need a medium-sized block. So this will be the solid color in our, I guess this is this the goose in a flying geese block? I think it is, because it's like the big triangle, like geese flying triangles. So I think this is the goose in this case. Okay, and then we need 4 of these guys. So I'm going to pick this one of these. I want to see what the gingham looks like with it. And do I want to see what this looks like as well? No, I think we're going to do this guy, the cream, because these are both closer to white based. So what I've done with these squares earlier is I drew a diagonal line with a pencil, just a regular pencil, from one corner to the other. I've done that to all of them. It took one episode of Drag Race, and I just sat there with a pencil and a ruler and did that. I find myself with the solid color really looking for what side is the right side, but I find myself looking so hard that you probably can't tell what is right side and wrong side. So we're just gonna go with it. So we've got square, and then we go square, and then let's do this one. Let's do this one. So what I have discovered, when you do your flying geese blocks in this recommended way from the Prairie Quilt Co pattern, which is great. As I said, it was the reel of her doing this that brought the quilt to my attention. What I discovered is when we're sewing our blocks like this, these two fabrics that you start with together are never together or in the final goose block like this. So we start with the 70s floral and the scribbles, and then we're going to end up with 4 flying geese triangles, and it will be 70s floral with the gingham, 70s floral with the dot. It'll be scribbles with the gingham and then scribbles with the dot. So these two will not be together once we're finished. So now I'm going to go sew 1/4 inch to each side of this line. Okay, so we have 2 lines of stitching, 1/4 inch on either side of the pencil lines, which I lined up. Now we're going to cut on the pencil line. Ooh, well, this is fun. I did it. I had to rethread the machine. Like, I accidentally pulled the thread out of the needle, and then I had to rethread it. I did it. Like, I know people live their lives with long nails like this. I'm just not used to it. But I did manage to rethread the needle. Get this nice and lined up. The pencil line should be going from point to point. There. And now we have 2 little sort of heart shapes. So what I'm going to do now is press these so they're flat, and then I'm going to sew another square to each on this yellow part. Again, 1/4 inch on either side of the pencil line on here. Okay, so first, pressing. Okay, so here we are pressed. And again, this shows the amazing difference in the fabric. The scribbly fabric I used here, in this block, lots of scribbles, lots of pattern on that fabric. The other half of it, where it got cut down the middle, almost entirely plain. It's just so funny. Okay, so as I said, we have these 2 kind of pointy hearts. We're going to sew this guy here. Again, either side of that line, and then we're going to sew this guy here, either side of that line, and then come back, cut them apart, and then voila, geese. Okay, so I chain pieced these so they're attached. So we'll quickly unattach them. Okay, this guy. Oh, I need to put this down with at least 1 corner hanging off the edge if I'm going to continue wearing these. So again, I'm lining up the ruler from point to point on this square, which is where the pencil line is. That's those. Then I'll do it to this guy. And now we've got 4 Flying Geese blocks that just need to be ironed. So I'm just going to go iron quickly and then show you the gorgeousness. There, so they still need trimming down to the right size and trimming off the little foldy parts that pop up of the seam allowance. But here's one. We've got the gingham in the 70s. Here's this one, which is the light dot and the almost plain white piece of fabric that was the scribbles. Here's the other scribble block, which has a lot of pattern on it, and one of the ginghams. That's actually, it might be hard to see on the camera because it's kind of subtle, but this is a different tone of yellow than this, so I think we have some good contrast there, which is nice. And then the last one is the dot and the little 70s fabric. Very cute. Very happy with how those turned out. And honestly, it's just a very different vibe than these squares or these triangles. But I'm really happy with it. There's the blue skirt fabric that is waiting, has been waiting since last summer to be sewn up. That's how long that has been cut out. I still think I'm going to sew garments this summer because I was going to say I can't sew quilt blocks all summer. I could. I definitely could. But I do really want to wear that skirt and the black overalls that are underneath it, also in pieces. So thanks for listening. It'd be so great if you could subscribe, like, leave me a comment. Do you quilt? If you quilt, Do you post stuff up like this just for inspiration and to make you come back to it and want to do more? Because I just love looking at it. I love looking at pictures of what I've done. That really gets me going sometimes, to sit back down at the sewing machine, is to look at inspiration like that. But yeah, have a great day and talk to you later. Bye.